What's up everybody, how's it going? It's Burke, aka Dansweight here, and welcome back to this Final Fantasy XII attack only adventure. In the last episode we made it to the Hen Mines and we ended things with a battle against Tiamat in which we managed to be successful on the first attempt. And before that we basically did a few hunts and generally spent a bit of time boosting our inventory in preparation for the journey ahead. So without much further ado, let's get going with the next episode. As always, if you are enjoying the content, please remember to drop a like. And let's move things along now to the Elder Wyrm, which I know a few of you at least will be anticipating and wondering how I got on with. So let's go. Okay, so having defeated Tiamat, it's back to the Urut village, and here once again, I'm having a look at this shop. Like, this shop was one of those where there was just, every time I went back, there was always something that I kind of wanted for next time. Especially in terms of, like, the armors and stuff, because there's so many there, and we have so many characters and there's so many different pieces. Realistically, like, there's almost always never enough gil to buy everything that you want. But during my path through the Hen Mines and such, as you can see, I did pick up a fair few monster loots, and as a result, I did manage to boost up my gil once more. Now this time I was having a look at the accessories a little bit, and I did have, as you saw, Disable Girl was used by Tiamat, and so I thought to myself, in the future, obviously that's another status I need to protect against. I got a little bit lucky against Tiamat, but I can't, like, I need something to protect against it for sure, and so I decided to buy some accessories that protect against Disable, and then just restock the potions again before moving things along. After that, it was a quick trip back to Rabanastre. My high potions definitely got used up in the Hen Mines, and especially I think that's still, I think, the biggest issue when it comes to traversal. Whenever I go into areas like mines, that's where I tend to really use up my resources quite a lot, so it's always good for me at least to have a nice stock of high potions, especially now as the HP starts to really creep up and most characters start to hit like the 1000, 1500 mark. The potions are just not going to last very long, even with the potion laws, and so I decided to definitely make sure I keep my stock high for the high potions. So I started this little session with some hunts, and I think in general I will very quickly basically show you the Croakadile rematch, and that will basically be it, because other than that I did the Cluckatrice, which was a very easy one. And I just got like 1000 gil and I think an amber amulet or something like that. So nothing too special. And from there I could move things along because there's a lot to get through in this episode. And so I don't want to spend too much of it on hunts that weren't particularly important. But the Croakadile I will make an exception because that guy annoyed me in the previous session. But this time we should be able to take it down because we're definitely stronger and in a much better position than we were previously. And so now we are making a move back to the story. And we are faced with a choice. There is a crossroads here. Either you can take the path that takes you into the Elder Wyrm, or you can take a longer path around it. Now, my gut instinct upon seeing Elder Wyrm stats was that I should probably avoid this. But then I thought to myself, well, at the end of the day, that option is always there. There's no way I'm not going to at least fight this guy and see how difficult it is and basically show you guys how the fight went. So my initial feeling was that I'm not going to be able to win this fight, but I'm definitely going to show it because it would just be silly not to. Now, let's go through a few bits of information while I'm kind of setting up in the background here. Elder Wyrm is only a level 23, which is pretty low in terms of like what we've been facing at this stage. It's either on par or a little bit lower, but it has 71,692 HP, so almost 50% more HP than Tiamat. But most importantly, its attacks are very troublesome. So it can use magics like Slow, Break, Blind, Silence, Sleep, and Confuse. So if I get hit by any of these almost, other than maybe Silence, obviously they're all a problem, and I can only cover like one or two of them at a time. So the magics are very problematic. It has a move called Sporefall, which is going to be incredibly dangerous because Sporefall can do Confusion, Slow, Silence, Blind, Poison, and Oil, and all of them afflict at 100% rate. So Sporefall is a horrendous move with many status effects that are detrimental to me that I cannot avoid. Like, there's no kind of, if it hits you, You can't like RNG your way out of it, it seems. So there's that, and then there's Fireball, where if you've already been hit with oil especially, it's going to be very nasty. So those are some of the moves that it can do. It's very, very nasty, and I think it's one of those bosses that I think a lot of people would assume is going to be a very, very big problem in this run, or a complete roadblock, depending on your levels and your setup. So let's get into it and have this first attempt and see how things go. Now, what I will say is that also in terms of statuses, it is immune to slow, which is unfortunate. It's one of the statuses we can afflict pretty easily at this stage, but it's immune. It's also immune to sap, so the chopper can't really do its job against it. The one thing that it's not immune to is actually silence, and so I mentioned that it has some nasty magics that can inflict some very bad status effects onto you, and so silence at the moment at least was pretty much my only outlet to do anything like somewhat useful against it. So let's see that first attempt now. 71,000 HP here. So obviously Balthea leads the line because he's able to have silence shot on his weapon. And confusion comes in immediately. I think that's a little unlucky. But silence hits immediately. So Balthea, just before he got confused, he managed to fire off the shot here and silence it. Now what you're also seeing, of course, is that we have two Treants, which is obviously going to be a problem as well. So I think my first reaction was to see if I can, to some extent at least, ignore them and just go straight for Elder Wyrm. And we'll see how the fight goes. Whenever there's minions, I think oftentimes my instinct is to see what happens if you just ignore. Now, thankfully, the confusion is gone from Balthea, and we can really start to just attack Elder Wyrm. But after a little bit of time, I kind of realized that maybe it's not the best idea here. Like, the Treants are getting too many attacks in. And maybe I thought I can actually kill them pretty quickly, and so it's worth taking the extra, I don't know, 20-30 seconds of battle time to just make sure I get rid of them. And I think if there's a time to do these things, obviously it's when the main boss has high HP, because pretty much every boss gets more dangerous the lower HP they have. So I think this was a good time to just make sure I did clear them out. And now I can focus back in. Now, Larsa's already been KO'd. That's a little unfortunate. I think Larsa being KO'd first is always bad because you can't replace him with another character. And so no matter what you do, your damage output essentially will drop for the rest of the fight, because you automatically just go down from 4 characters to 3. So I think any attempt in which Larsa becomes like a primary target early on and gets KO'd, you're already going to be kind of minimizing your chances of victory pretty quickly. But you can see that health bar is really not moving anywhere near as fast as it was for something like Tiamat. So fundamentally, I think it might have higher defense. That's something I'll annotate in, because it takes too much time for me to look at every single stat and compare them. But Sporefall comes in now. This is where I was very worried. Here we go. Lots of negative statuses at play here. And I had a quick look. Vaughn, as you can see, he's been hit with all of them. Everything I listed before. Now, I'm sure you guys noticed it too, but only the character that Elder Wyrm was facing seemed to get hit. So it looked to me like it was the type of attack that had like almost like a cone. If you were directly in front of him, you would get hit by those statuses, but if you were able to space out and get behind it, there's a chance that you can avoid the deadly effects of Sporefall. So that was definitely something I realized from the very first attempt, and it was something I was going to definitely try to make sure I did. Now, it's a little difficult with more pure melee fighters to do that, obviously, but you can see Balthea here is being targeted, but I was doing my best to kind of run him away from the other characters and kind of draw Elder Wyrm's attention here. So the idea is to not bunch up too much, because if then Sporefall comes in, then there's a much higher chance that it hits everybody. Now, as a result, again, the camera's being annoying because I'm on the edge of the map, and it's a big enemy and all that kind of stuff, but there's not too much I can do here. So you can see Sporefall, it happened once so far. Thankfully, it's not spamming it too much. Mechanically, I think it's one of those that it will do it at certain like intervals. So it says Sporefall will happen one time once it drops below 80%, and then it says repeat after the next 15 commands. So that's apparently the script for how this enemy works. And once it's below 80 HP, 80% HP, sorry, that's when Fireball also starts to become a factor. So once it goes below 80%, that's when the nastiest moves start to happen. Now Ashe, you saw, took only 230 damage there because she has a Flame Shield. So it's one of those things that buying earlier definitely paid off. So here we go again. Another Spore Fall. Let's see who gets hit this time. Yeah, so this time it was Ashe herself. And then I was thinking, wait a minute, Ashe is not facing the enemy here. How does that work? Is it the fact that Spore Fall only hits one character? Who does it target? Like, how does this stuff work? Then, in the targeting part of the AI script, it says attacks nearest enemy. So I don't know if Spore Fall automatically targets the character that's closest. I'm not exactly sure about the mechanics of that. It doesn't mention anything in the Final Fantasy wiki. But what I could see was that in general, it still felt to me like as long as I space the characters out, there's probably an increased chance of avoiding multiple characters getting hit by the effects. So you're seeing here, I mean, I would say considering that Larsa got taken out very early, we're still doing pretty well. Like, we got hit with 2 Spore Falls, and you can see, yeah, Varn got hit very hard. Like, the first time I think he did pretty well, but then he got absolutely destroyed by that Fireball afterwards. But I would say this was a good first attempt. I mean, there's definitely some positive signs here, but Fireball spam is happening quite a lot here. 448 damage there. And so we had a good run, but at this stage, obviously, the battle is pretty much over, and we kind of already need a new attempt. But I'd got far enough where I was in that zone where I was thinking, yeah, okay, maybe this is worth a try. There was a few things that didn't quite go right for us in this fight, and maybe we can have a better run next time. So let's have another look. And then, of course, on the second attempt, things actually went worse. You can see both Barsh and Ashe have all of the status effects. If you look at the table here, look at the status effects. I got completely wrecked, so I didn't space out as well for this one, and more characters got hit with Spore Fall. And that is really the key move in terms of this fight. If it affects too many characters too quickly, then you're going to get really badly destroyed. So Fran is the last one left once again, but you can see it's barely even anywhere near 50% HP, and we failed on our second attempt as well. So I'm going to skip this one quickly. So now let's take another look. This was attempt number 3. What I wanted to do here was to basically have my characters blitz out the Treants as quickly as possible. So I was thinking of like which one should I do here? In terms of gambits, I want them to attack the Treants first, and it was almost certainly going to be the case that they have obviously the lowest HP at any given time, and so we want to take them out as quickly as possible. And so I thought lowest HP might be a good gambit to have them all focus on the Treants and take them out as quickly as possible. So that's one of the differences between this attempt and the next one. Begins casting slow immediately. Obviously there's a little bit of RNG there depending on which one it's going to cast first. Balthier gets the silence on. Now we can focus on the Treants. Thankfully, they're not immune to slow. As you can see, one of them has been afflicted with slow, thanks to Barsh. So there's a little bit of a mix-up here. Like, watching this back, I wasn't targeting the right one here. Yeah, now I switch over. So I still wasn't, like, doing this perfectly, but I think this was a bit of a better setup than my first one. Yeah, so since Balthier was slowed and he's already afflicted his silence, I thought let's just get Varn in there, someone who's quicker. And you can see, especially when Elder Wyrm is silenced, it's definitely a lot less dangerous in the early stages. And so now we're ready. Here we go again. Now Barsh is already at 145 HP, so he's one of my strongest, biggest damage dealers, so I was definitely very worried at this point, because I thought if he's already basically almost dead, then we're in trouble. And he is dead. The one good situation here is that Larsa had not been targeted up until this point, but that's changed now. So this was trouble. I need Larsa to survive here. So I'm trying to kind of draw his attention away a little bit and trying to space out at the same time. So I'm moving my characters around. I still wasn't 100% sure how it worked for Spore Fall, but I thought you can't really go wrong if you space your characters out. It's the best thing that you can do for now. Now you can also see that Larsa still has the same amount of HP as he had before. Like, he did a really nice job of just blocking some attacks. So despite the fact that we lost Barsh very early on, I'd say we're actually doing pretty well here. And there's our first Sporefall. Let's see who's going to get hit here. I kept Penelo out on purpose also here, because she's one of the like kind of slower, less useful characters, I feel. So if she gets hit, it's better for her to kind of swap out. Now, once again, the character that was facing Elder Wyrm, and I believe more so the one who was nearest, was the one that got hit here. So Vaughn is the one that got hit with all the statuses. As soon as I can, I swap him out. In comes Fran. I mean, so far at least, it was looking decent, but like not a particularly great attempt. But keep your eyes on Larsa here. He's being targeted again. 233. That's not looking good. He might not survive another hit. Blocked. And now he's turned his attention to somebody else. So that's good. I mean, that's another good thing about Elder Wyrm. It doesn't stay attached to one character for too long. 1 HP for Larsa. Block, parry. Now watch him. Look at him go now. This changed the fight. Parry once again. So 1 block and 2 parries here. Just keep your eyes on him. Another hit. I'm trying my best, but the camera is just annoying. But he's still there. And now someone else is there. So Larsa survived an onslaught there and is still continuing to do damage. He's got some of that like last stand kind of mechanics. Blocked again. And watch this chain. Watch him go. I watched this and I was like, holy shit. Larsa, another parry. He went absolutely insane. Completely turned the fight around. Crazy. So I saw this and I was like, come on, man. Like, after a performance like that is what you call a last stand. Dude was on 1 HP. He must have blocked and parried like 6 attacks or something like that, and then went on like a 10 chain. Absolutely crazy. So we got to make it work here. We can't let that superhuman heroic effort go to waste. So Ashe is a decent target here. She's got the flame shield and she has protect, so she can stay alive for a little while. Right, another Sporefall coming. Ashe is the closest one, so let's see if Ashe gets hit. She's both facing it and the closest. And yes, she is the one that gets hit. So it does seem to me like it targets one at a time, unless maybe 2 characters are very close at the same time. I still keep her out because I know she's going to get hit, and the confusion's going to go very soon. And so now, obviously, Fireball is the big threat, but she does have a flame shield, so that maybe there's a chance she survives one of the fireballs here. Let's have a look. So this is the auto protect putting in work here as well, and the flame shield if it's needed. No fireball yet. There it is. Let's see if she can survive. 737. The answer is no, unfortunately, but it's worth a try. Bring Balthea in. He does have slow, unfortunately, but I think it's still better than bringing in a confused character and dealing with the shenanigans that might cause. Yeah, Penelo being targeted. You can see how much more quickly Elder Wyrm is swiping here. Again, it's turned into that like last stand, speeding up. Things are getting very dangerous again here. Balthea is slow. Like this is already much closer than we've ever been on attempt number 3. And we'll see if we can hang in there. So thankfully Vaughn was targeted and the confusion is gone, so that was nice. And now we just have to wait and see what happens here. Balthea having max HP again is nice. He's put himself in that position again to try and bring it home for us, as he has done already multiple times here. But look at that series of attacks there. But then a nice little last stand from Vaughn as well there. Despite being blinded, he still landed some hits. And so he did a nice little job for us there right before he died. And so the HP now is very low. We're getting very close. I'm looking to see if there's anything I want to swap to at this stage. But I can't really think of anything that would really help. I mean, blindness is probably still the worst one of the bunch because I can't protect against confusion anyway. So now we just wait. Blocked. Clutch block from Balthea here. And a crit. And then another Sporefall. So It was very close here. Someone's obviously going to get confused, and there's going to be one character left who kind of retains their sanity, and we'll see if we can bring it home. So I'm pretty sure it's Balthier here. Yeah, Balthier's going to get confused. Let's switch to Fran. Let's see if Fran can bring it home. There's no HP left here, and she manages to get the job done. So it wasn't Balthier kind of pure heroics this time. I think if I had to pick an MVP, it's got to be Larsa for this fight. Like, Larsa absolutely crushed it. When he dropped to like 1 HP, those series of parries and blocks, and then the 10 chain, that changed the whole fight. Like, it really gave us a chance. And we managed to bring it home against the Elder Wyrm. So I would say the main kind of things here that helped was obviously the silence, because you stop him casting a lot of annoying statuses that could really hinder you. Sporefall seemingly hitting one character at a time, from what I noticed, was definitely very helpful for me. And it seems to only hit the nearest character. Upon watching it back as well, it does look that way. Like, whichever character is targeting also usually is the nearest one, and so obviously those two things go together, but it doesn't always happen. And so the fact that it seems to be one character at a time, it gives you a chance to generally swap that character out, or you know, just manage your party a little more effectively. So I think the fact that we had Larsa, as Balthier almost kills himself there, the fact that we had Larsa and him not being targeted too much in the early fight was also a big factor. And just as like an extra little backup, you've got things like Argyle armlets to protect against the blind part of it, at least if you want to. And you also have things like flame shields for Ashe and Varn, so that in this fight at least they can take less damage from Fireball. So I think those general things definitely helped me out a lot. And obviously the work that I did in the previous session, where I managed to get my levels up to about level 20, I did a bunch of hunts, I found like the next tier of weapons for a lot of characters, I bought some upgraded armors, and so I generally obviously was in a much stronger position. If I tried to do this, I think without getting a lot of that stuff, it definitely would have been way harder for me to do. But Elder Wyrm has been defeated, and it was one of the most difficult bosses that we faced so far. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one, and with that it is time to move on and continue the story. Okay, so it was a brief return to the jungle before getting to the Paramina Rift here. You can see that the Malbros are still there, of course, but again, we're just too quick. The Great Malbro is slightly more dangerous, but I'm kind of surprised at how little their HP is in this one, in relative terms. It's good for us. I mean, we can take them out in like 4 to 5 hits, which is very useful. And it really minimizes the chances of anything particularly dangerous happening here. Yeah, you can see there's barely like a 60-70 HP difference between the great one and the normal one, which I'm a little bit surprised by, if I'm being honest. I feel like it should have at least like 500 more HP or something, like 1,000 more, honestly. Now, I did not realize that they had these guys here. This dinosaur appears in the jungle, but thankfully we managed to afflict the slow, and it definitely has a decent chunk of HP, but nothing too crazy. And especially since it's slowed as well, we really managed to beat it up. No problems. 722 experience and 2 LP, so there you go. Clawing Breath happened, but it missed everything. But we didn't get hit by any of the effects, so it doesn't seem to have like a 100% chance or anything like that either. So it's a relatively forgiving area. Like, it could be very nasty, but it's pretty forgiving. Now, what I'm going to show you next is going to probably blow some people's minds, especially people that know the game well. They're going to be like, what the hell? What kind of insane RNG is this? So we have a 4-chain, and did you see that? You obtain a Gilt measure. I was like, I saw it out of the corner of my eye. I was like, holy shit, what the hell? Gilt measure? Measures were something that I literally planned for before starting the playthrough, because they can afflict buffs and the like upon hit. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I didn't even know when you get your first one. Like, when can you buy one? How do you receive one? So I was like, hold on a minute, Gilt measure. This was like the thing, right? Like, what I needed for the playthrough. One of the things that I didn't think I could get. And there it is. Look at that. On hit. Protect. It's insane. I couldn't believe I picked one up from there. Basically, if you look at the Gargoyle's stats here, it says that at chain level 0, it has a 5% chance of dropping a Gilt measure. If you're at chain level 1, it goes up to 8%. Now these are the kind of things that I didn't research, like going in. I wasn't looking at what does every single enemy drop and what's the chances, can I pick this up, can I pick that up. So this was a complete surprise to me, and I was absolutely amazed when it dropped a Gilt measure and I was able to use one with Balthier. This is huge because obviously it literally allows me to basically cast Protect. So it's a bit difficult because I need to hit my characters to do it. But for example, before a specific boss fight, when I'm standing outside the boss room, I can hit everybody with the Gilt measure, get everybody protected, and then go into the fight. Or if I can kind of map things out correctly, obviously mid-fight I can also try to reapply Protect as well. So this was absolutely huge. Not only do we have auto-protect armors at this point for 2 of our heavy armor users, we can also now use Protect on our characters. So it's absolutely massive. Now, the one downside, I don't know how the rest of the measures are going to go. All I knew was that they can bestow buffs, for example, like Protect. One thing I wasn't too sure about was the Protect and the Shell in this game. How does it work in terms of how long does it last, and that kind of stuff. Also, what you saw there was that it doesn't work immediately. So it seems like a good one to do, for example, before you head into a boss room. Just get everybody kind of protected up before you go in. But it only lasts for a finite period of time. It definitely doesn't last forever. And so if it takes you a lot of turns, if you're a little bit unlucky, where you need like multiple hits on each character to get Protect to work, then you could waste a lot of time. So mid-battle, as you're seeing here, like I don't think this is a good kind of strategy mid-fight. Balthier, like you tend to not have like 30 seconds to get everybody protected in the middle of an intense fight. Because we're only going to have 3 characters, and one of them basically spending his time protecting might not be particularly good. But it is now doable, it's now a possibility. And so this is great. The fact that I can do this was absolutely huge, I was loving it. The only problem, and you're going to see this happen multiple times, because this is a new way of playing now for me, with the Gilt measure, I need to remember to unequip it once I'm done protecting everyone, because obviously what happens if you forget? If you forget and then you just continue fighting, you're going to be casting Protect, or basically putting Protect on your enemies. And so you're going to see on more than one occasion where I go into a fight, I get everyone protected up, I forget to swap back out to my gun and I start attacking the enemy. So it's something I need to get used to. But in any case, we are heading into the Paramina Rift having picked up a Gilt measure. Huge. Now, one thing I noticed immediately was that after being in this new area already, Varn and Barsh have lost their Protect status. So it seems to me like it is a little bit like temperamental, and it's relatively temporary as well. So it's the kind of thing that if you really want to, like even when you're going through a random encounter area, if you want everyone to keep their Protect, it's a little bit of a pain. It can be done, but it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of juggling, because you're going to have to do this every time. And then get Balthier to hit everybody, and then you have to swap the weapon back out so that he can start to damage enemies again, and then maybe like a minute later it's going to run out, so you need to swap it back. So it is cumbersome to constantly do it over and over, but at the end of the day, especially for specific fights and boss fights, I think it was really nice to have this. So at this stage, because it's the first time I have it, I'm still kind of experimenting with, you know, how easy is it to reapply, how long does it last, how does it work? So for now, I'm obviously trying to keep everyone under Protect as much as I can. So it's definitely pretty finite. It's not going to like give you basically auto Protect. Once you have it on, you're going to keep it until it's dispelled. But one trick I started to utilize more as time went on was to obviously put Protect on people and then leave them on the back line, and kind of hope that that obviously doesn't eat away at the duration that they can have Protect for. So yeah, it's definitely something that I needed to get used to. It's just a new way of playing for me, but it was definitely a very nice tool to have moving forward. So let's have a look at our first Paramina Rift encounters. Got some little wolves here, 1,600 HP. At this stage, that's pretty good. I mean, we can definitely handle that. And again, for this one at least, we're still not too far away from any healing if anything goes drastically wrong. But the first time through the Paramina Rift, it's not like a proper like you're not supposed to be engaging in that many battles anyway. So it's just a very mini little taster there of the situation, but we can move straight on towards Mount Bur-Omisace. Okay, so at the Mount Bur-Omisace shop, I saw the bowline sash, and obviously having faced both Tiamat and Elder Wyrm, I was like, yeah, like confusion protection is something that I would love to have, but it is an accessories 15, which is a pretty steep requirement. A lot of my characters weren't that close to accessories 15, but in general it's something I definitely know that I need to have, and so I will pick those up. And in general, this is where I started to kind of try to make a bit more of a move towards stuff like the bowline sash on the license board. So you can see now I have the next tier of weapons, with the sledgehammer being particularly interesting to me because it literally has a chance of afflicting disable on hit, and disable is obviously a huge thing for us to have. Now obviously it's probably not going to work too well against bosses. I think it'd be a little bit OP if you could disable bosses, but in terms of random encounters, and especially like more difficult stuff, maybe some hunts or maybe some more like rare game, that kind of stuff we encounter, obviously having disable on our weapon could be pretty huge. So I think of the stuff that I saw, that was one of the main kind of highlight things that I wanted, and I definitely had to make sure that I was going to pick up one of those. Now here, I think I made a mistake. Thankfully, I still have slow shot with the slow bolts with Pinello, but I shouldn't really have done that. I should have kept Barsh's weapon so that I could still apply slow a little bit more quickly. So in hindsight, that was a mistake. I should have kept it. But it's not the end of the world because I still have someone else who does have the slow states available. But it wasn't the right thing to do, I think. But you can see once again, same old problem here, where I brought 3 new weapons, and even though I sold my old weapons, all of them, and I traded in obviously all of the loot that I got, I still don't have anywhere near enough money to buy any armor for anybody. So this is like the general kind of Gilt quote-unquote problem here, because just too many things to buy that can definitely make a meaningful improvement, but there's nowhere near enough Gilt to do it. So all of these kind of shields and items and this kind of stuff, maybe for one character I can buy 1 or 2 little things depending on what I sell, but obviously imagine trying to get a new armor for all 6 characters here, like a new shield for everybody and stuff. Like, it's just not going to work. Now thankfully, because I have auto protect for Pinello and Ash, I'm not planning to upgrade their armor for a little while, for now at least. But of course things like shields are great to upgrade if you can, and then all of my light armor guys, obviously they can benefit a fair bit here as well. You can see from those numbers there's a lot of like +6s and +9s available. So thankfully I think Varn and Barsh are doing okay-ish. I think they need the upgrades a little less, but I think Fran and Balthier, obviously they're a little bit more lacking in terms of their armor. So when it comes to this stuff, for me it was a little more of a balance of trying to basically give Barsh and Varn the better armors, because they're the ones that's going to be melee attacking, but trying not to forget about Balthier and Fran too much, because when they do get hit, even if they're less likely to do so, when they do get hit, or if it's like an AoE kind of move, they're the ones that's going to get really punished. And so it was kind of trying to find the balance, but I was generally always prioritizing Barsh and Varn when it came to light armor. So you can see I need light armor 6 here, but thankfully I've got enough license points to do it, and so I can give Barsh the necessary armor. So this definitely helps us generally keep up here. If you're able to buy most of what's in the shop, or like at least some elements of it, you know you're not going to fall too far behind in terms of where you're supposed to be for your defense and your attack. And so now at Mount Bur-Omisace, we basically don't really have anything to do in terms of battles. There's a lot of story here, a lot of cutscenes, a lot of assassination. We have the sultry and seductive Al Cid showing up as well. Great scene between him, Ash, and the rest of the gang. But unfortunately, we can't dwell on those for too long because we have business to attend to, and we will rejoin things back at Mount Bur-Omisace, where we have to continue the story and move things along. So you can see at this stage, double speed up is something we can definitely start to go for. I'll show you guys like something different at this stage. We've got a long way to go here though. You can see the Stilshrine of Miriam is quite far away here. So this is why, again, I was trying to make sure that I had at least some protect going on here. And I don't want to use a huge amount of high potions to get through. Now, as is the case with most weapons in this game, the chances of afflicting a status are not that high. It tends to be somewhere between like the 5 and 15% range, depending on which one it is. And so I think the chance of afflicting disable is probably like 10% at best, which is still nice because obviously disable is incredibly powerful, but you're not going to be constantly obviously making it work. And still I'm having a look at Shell Shield here, thinking like, is it worth making a push for the Shell Shield right now? Or should we keep going here and start to make our way towards more of this HP? And still I think you've got to take that HP, and so a massive 310 HP boost here. Obviously the Foe Breaker, one of the best things about it is that you will get a lot of HP. And my Time Battle Mage is also finally getting closer to a minor HP boost, which for her at least as a long range fighter is going to still be worth quite a lot here. At this stage I'm definitely much more used to making sure someone has a bangle. You can see I've been burned from that a few times so far already. But definitely learned my lesson. It's still going to happen, I'm still going to be hit with it, but definitely less than I would have been before. I want to take on this guy, something a little bit different. Let's go for this lizard here. 2,500. Does 220 damage, which is still quite a lot here. And you can see, like, again, the protect is gone from Varn, so this whole, like, keeping everyone protected for, like, an extended period of time while going through an area, it wasn't really that practical. And as I say, I didn't want to sacrifice, like, you could probably set up some gambits for Balthier so that he periodically keeps on attacking, like, the characters. But then you only have 2 characters at this stage because Lars is gone. I didn't want to only have 2 characters attacking and Balthier constantly just trying to reapply Protect, because that's the only way to, I think, really automate the process. Other than that, you'd have to do just constant chopping and changing, because obviously he can't use his Gilt measure to attack enemies. So it just seemed like a really nasty situation, so I thought let's just leave it alone. Now, the Twintania, 5,200 HP, so something definitely more serious here. We've been breezing it up until now, but this was something that was a bit more intimidating. And so I kind of wanted to try and get some Protect first, but I messed up here. So now, this was an example of where Balthier ends up protecting the enemy. So I kind of got a little bit ambushed here. My plan was to obviously get some Protect on and then take this guy on. And so this was not ideal. But thankfully, even then, with basically only 2 characters attacking, I still got the job done. So that was a good sign, but that's a perfect example there of just like not implementing this correctly. Thankfully a save crystal nearby, so I could just get my HP back and reset. So we got these Garudas here. It's a flyer, so I take Varn out and I bring in Penelo. Now this is a bit of a dangerous little bit because we've got these traps here. I did not know if these guys were going to walk onto the traps. It was close. And I'm bringing myself to like a more safe area, open area. And now we can fight these guys. So I think in general you can see that Mount Bur-Omisace was also fine. And we can get towards the Stilshrine of Miriam without any major issues here. So I think the final thing I will show is the Emperor Avis. They're very strong compared to the other stuff here. So have a look at that. You can see here, like, it's not... the HP is not going down as quickly as some of the other stuff, and a Protect happened there as well. But this trio, they're definitely one of my strongest like damage dealing trios here. Look at that. So Barsh definitely took some decent damage there, but still, like, we can overpower things like the Emperor Avis, so I think that was still a pretty good sign. So I think that's the final thing I'll show. I did spend a little bit more time here. There was some more random encounters and that kind of thing, but nothing that we couldn't overcome along the way. So we are going to be moving on to the Stilshrine of Miriam. Okay, so this place took quite some time. This is a fairly big area. There's some back and forth. There's all of those like locked doors, and you have to activate this and activate that. So this is an area that's going to be a little bit harder to kind of condense down into, like, say 10 minutes or something, 10, 15 minutes, however long I can. But you saw Disable hit there, which was kind of nice. But what I will do, of course, is generally, as I have been so far, show you guys like a general collection of encounters. But this was one place where, because it was so deep and there was so much back and forth, there was quite a lot of, like, over time, the enemies kind of chipping away a lot of damage, and me having to resort to a fair few high potions and stuff to be able to get through. So it's a lot of like basically trying to be efficient with the save crystals and using my high potions obviously to continue my path through. Alright, let's see a new enemy type here. This is one that once again concerned me slightly because, well, first of all, I did the right thing here. I managed to actually swap out my weapon, so I didn't end up casting Protect on it. But these stone guys that we have to fight, I was thinking to myself, again, because of the fact that they're literally stone, is it going to be the case that they are going to be very well defended against physical damage? But you can see here, we're doing nice damage. I mean, look at the damage there, 600, 600. So thankfully, no trouble at all. It's a slow enemy as well. And so we didn't have any issues against that guy. And finally, we get that HP plus 190. It was a really good time to get it, as things started to get a bit more difficult in here. And she does have a couple of swiftnesses down the bottom of that part as well. So that's another thing that we could potentially go for. But there is also the bowline sash, which I increasingly felt like I needed. So just making sure that I prioritize the right things at this stage. So we have Dragon Avis this time, and we have 3 of them next to each other. So this one I wasn't too sure again. This could be a bit dangerous. It's definitely an absolute mess in here, and Ash is definitely losing HP pretty rapidly. But there you go, one of them has been taken down. 2 LP and 850 experience is definitely pretty nice. And this is definitely one battle where I think the Protects have definitely been helping. And having things like Shield for block, obviously definitely useful as well. There you go, level up. So the levels will start to go up a little more here. And there's that disable. We managed to get a disable to hit. So you're seeing, as I said, like it's not exactly a high rate. But when it hits, obviously it's just so nice. Absolutely huge status. So there we go. That was one of the toughest encounters you can face here. But as long as you've got the ability to heal up afterwards with your items, it's generally not too big of an issue. So I think that's generally the story of this place. There was no one encounter, I think, that could really cause me any problems. But the sheer amount of them as you go deeper and deeper into the Stilshrine definitely really started to make things increasingly difficult, and it made it quite hard to conserve high potions after like so many fights. So I'm going to skip ahead to like a much later part of this. Now, one cool thing that they have in the Stilshrine as well, which I'd generally forgotten about, but thanks to following the Gilt guide I kind of knew in advance, was that it has this guy, and it turns into an enemy at first. So you need to make sure you take out this crystal bug, and if you do it successfully, you'll get yourself a new save crystal. So this was definitely important to do as a pit stop for like basically somewhere deeper into the Stilshrine. So this was a battle that I definitely couldn't afford to lose. But everyone's being targeted now because of the magic, and these spells are hitting hard. Like, I think magic, elemental, that's probably one of my weaknesses here. I don't exactly have too much defense against it. Yes, it has a lot of tricks up its sleeve, and Fran has been killed, but we're going to be fine. Obviously, you get to heal afterwards here, so even if you only have one character left, it's not a huge deal. So that happens, and then a nice, fresh blue crystal would appear, and you can restore your HP and throw a save in. So that was definitely a very useful thing for me throughout the dungeon. Alright, let's have a look at a couple more enemies here. We've got the Blood Gigas. These guys have skipped head day, but they are still very dangerous. Giant axes, but 144, so pretty good defense, but they hit multiple times there. Good block. Yeah, definitely those blocks are just huge, man. Whenever they come in, like, they're really, really useful. So you can see there the same story continues. Like, no one enemy is, or group of enemies is causing us any trouble. And we can come in, just quickly get our HP back, and keep things moving. We have the Dark Mare here. So obviously, in terms of my equipment, I have the Argyle armlet equipped for this guy, because it's probably going to use some darkness. But it can phase away. So what I don't want to do is kind of attract these two into the fight, if I can help it. We'll see how this goes. So hopefully you'll see some darkness protection in effect here. So we're halving darkness, and it got disabled. Huge! So now, obviously, I think we're going to get drawn into the fight against those two as well. But at least we disabled this guy, and that will obviously make life much easier for us. So the Gigases are still standing by. Thankfully, they haven't kind of rushed in and started smacking us. And I think that was definitely very useful. But you're seeing the power of disable here. Like, this is obviously just... it makes the fight so much easier when you can do that. There we go. Yeah, disable absolutely, like, it does what it says on the tin. Literally just stops them from being able to do anything. And you can just destroy enemies. But you can see a fair few enemies, like, at this point of the game have, like, auto-protects and stuff. But despite that, I think we're doing pretty nice damage. I mean, Varn's hitting for, like, 600. Lots of blocks coming in as well. Like, in general, I would say we're doing pretty well here. So we're going to continue to move things along. And now we are going to come to a bit that you guys are going to enjoy, I'm very sure. Because so far, at least, it's been pretty smooth sailing. But then, just when things were going well, I ran into something that I didn't realize was going to cause me as many problems as it did. So this was a phase where I wasn't looking properly at the guide. And yeah. Befuddling gas trap. Now this place is super problematic because it happens as soon as you step in, and I don't have confusion protection here for anybody. And then we also have to deal with all of these enemies here, so it's really nasty. If you don't have something like float, or you don't have the item, I think the accessory, I think they're called steel pollens or something, that allows you to not hit those traps, this is guaranteed. Like, this is a trap I actually can't avoid in this challenge at the moment. And so we have to face the confusion situation here, and we have to somehow try and survive against these guys who are doing big damage here. We're getting outnumbered. The Matriarch bomb is in there as well. It's really, really nasty situation here. So everything was going really nicely, and then suddenly it went completely out of control here. So I'm kind of really just fumbling around trying to see what I can do here. But the Matriarch has good HP as well. And so do the Flans. And so here I was just like, well, I'm kind of screwed, because obviously there's a lot of confusion happening. Berserk, it can work in your favor, but when there's so many enemies here, it's just like, what are you supposed to do? If they were all systematically attacking the same enemy while Berserk, like, we could get rid of them fast. But this was just horrendous. Like, you saw maybe that Balthia's gun there did like 100 damage. So they're resistant to that type of damage. And just like completely got destroyed here. But I knew that whatever was in that chest at the top, I wanted it. And so even though I end up basically getting a game over here because we're nowhere near, we did hit the disable, which was nice, but this was way too little too late. Like, Ash put up a wonderful last stand here, but I promise you it's not going to be enough. And another one spawns. Basically, it splits into two. And so you have another one spawning. So I was thinking, like, this might be, like, impossible. Like, if every time I'm walking in, I'm guaranteed to be hit by the befuddling thing. And I've got, like, 3 or 4 enemies at once all trying to kill me. And they're pretty resistant against some types of damage that I have. Like, how am I supposed to take these guys on? What am I supposed to do? I wasn't too sure. And so let's just go back in again and see what happened. Now, the interesting thing here is that obviously the autosaves are usually incredibly helpful for me. And it means that even if you don't have a nearby, like, crystal save, you can use the autosave and you'll be fine. So let's have a look at what happens when you load it up. It loads it up, obviously, in the room. And so that means that if you want to use this save, this autosave, you're kind of stuck. You have to load it up from this exact point. And so there is no kind of load up an earlier save, come in with one character, so that only one character gets confused, and then you can swap in new ones and stuff. Like, to do that, I'd have to load up an earlier save and then make the run here. And so this was where I was trying to see, like, can I still get it done with this save? Now, what you would have noticed there is that nothing actually spawned until I ran forward. So thankfully, the confusion was taken away quickly, and they didn't spawn in until I made the first move. And so I realized there that you actually have a brief chance to kind of sort things out before the fight gets going. And another thing that you'll see is that this time there is no Matriarch bomb. And so clearly that's some kind of enemy, like rare game situation that has a chance to spawn or not. And so that obviously gave me a little bit more confidence, thinking that, okay, if I just repeat this enough, there should be a chance for me to actually win this one. Now, again, you're seeing the trouble with Berserk here. Like, obviously the damage is good, but when you have this many enemies, if you're not focusing your attacks in on them one at a time, they're going to last for much longer. And so that was the main trouble here. And there you go, there's new ones kind of phasing in, they're splitting, Phantasmal Gaze, giving you more confusion. So the statuses here are just really nasty, and this was the battle that really made me realize that I need to get Accessories 15. Like, this is important, because this is absolutely a mess, and I'm sure there's going to be more situations moving forward where confusion is going to really cause me a lot of problems. So thankfully, we've managed to hold on here. It's okay, but it was really, really messy, and without confusion, protection, you're always at the mercy of those kind of things happening. So yeah, thankfully I survived. Now what I wanted to do was, basically I knew that the Matriarch Bomb would reappear. There was a chance of it appearing or not, and so I thought, since I've healed here, I can now put in a new fresh autosave, having healed and dealt with the flans there. So I came back in, and I did not realize that the trap resets. So yeah, that was definitely not ideal. I did not know that that was going to happen. And I also didn't realize that Fran still had her fire arrows equipped. And so yeah, this turned into an absolute mess. I really didn't think that once you triggered the trap once, it would just regenerate and that trap would permanently be there. So I kind of needlessly put myself in a really bad situation. And so I had to keep respawning again until I could sort out this stupid confusion trap issue. And in the end I did, and this time the Matriarch Bomb also was taken out, which was a nice bonus, and so we managed to basically take out everything here eventually. I think I needed like 4 tries or something to get through this room, and obviously it is a little bit RNG depending on how quickly you get out of confusion and what happens and all that kind of stuff. Now the reason I did this was because during this phase, obviously I was looking at my Jagged guide thinking like, what the hell, like what is up with this place? And there's another one here, you see that? Absolutely horrendous area. Like, it's, what is this thing protecting? Like, what could be this valuable that is actually giving you this many traps? And the answer is a shell shield. Now this is kind of not so great because I believe from my party Ash is the only one that can use it. I looked last time because this was mentioned in the previous episode, but I think Penelo is not able to use it. The Foe Breaker can, but the Time Battle Mage cannot. So in that sense it was kind of all for nothing because I already have a shell shield. So yeah, I managed to obviously beat those guys, get a bit of extra experience and that kind of thing, but it wasn't really what I wanted. So unfortunately it wasn't that useful, and Balthier got killed. There's no kind of shortcutting this area, you need to be very careful, and so I tried my best to get out, but I just did not realize that those guys would respawn. So this area was an absolute mess, and mostly because of a lack of status protection. No Berserk protection, no Confused protection, and that's what ends up happening as a result. So this was where autosave did a lot of heavy lifting for me, because obviously I could just load back up here and make sure that Balthier had enough HP to just complete that sprint away. Having 400 HP and trying to rely on that was not going to work. But eventually, as you might imagine, yes, I was able to get through this bit, but it was definitely very, very messy. It was the messiest, like, random encounter / dungeon bit I've had in the whole game so far. And it was all kind of for nothing because the shell shield, only one character can equip it, and I already have one. So not ideal, but I definitely want to show this bit because most of what you see from random encounters is just pure smooth sailing, everything's very easy. But this was a time where I actually got some game overs during the Stilshrine. And so, as I say, the Stilshrine was probably the single area where I probably spent the most amount of time so far. So in the background, I'm kind of showing like a little greatest hits of all of that stuff, because I really want to end the episode with another boss battle. So that's what we're going to do. The next boss battle that we have is called Vinuskar. This guy is a level 27, but only has 15,000 HP, which is not too bad. Now the trouble here is that you have this whole magnetic field situation where your metallic equipment grows heavy. So if you look at the kind of ATB bars here, you'll see that for some characters they're going to move a little differently. So let's take a look here. Balthia's one moves okay-ish. Fran's one seems to move okay as well. But Penelo, you can see, is very slow because of her armor type. So that's a bit of a problem, but in general we have still a fair bit of firepower, so I think as long as we're still kind of hitting heavy enough, it should be okay. So you can see like the shielded armor and all that stuff, they're all just going to be too heavy, and she does not have another option. So you kind of have to remove the armor if you want her to speed up potentially. But then I think she still goes slow. I think it's because of the crossbow. So kind of no matter what she does, Penelo is stuck in kind of heavy load here. So unfortunately it doesn't work so well. But because I wanted her to, like I wanted to space out in this fight, I decided to still keep her out there anyway, even though she wasn't the fastest enemy. Now, yeah, the character that Vinuskar focuses on gets killed pretty quickly here. And so again, my plan was to try and just keep kind of 2 long-range attackers on either side and have 1 melee attacker down the middle. So Barsh is going to head in there once again. And here comes a big move. Didn't seem to affect me. Now, in terms of the wiki, it says if the party equips any swords, hammers, axes and the like, they could take 3 times as long to dish out a single attack. Guns and bows are unaffected, but maybe crossbows are affected, because it just says guns and bows, but not crossbows. But whatever the case may be, I think this guy suffers from having too low HP. I like the concept of the whole like metallic stuff weighing you down, slowing you down, but 15k HP is just way too low. I mean, like, we had enemies like hours and hours ago that had 15k HP, so I get what they were trying to do with it, but I think they made it a little too easy. I think it should have had at least like double, and then maybe it would have affected things a little bit more. I guess depending on your setup, like maybe if you have a lot of heavy armor users, or like you don't have anyone that uses bows, that kind of thing, then maybe. But my team seemed a pretty good match for it, so this one was a pretty easy fight in the end, thankfully. But it's not over yet, because this is only a precursor fight to the main menu. Now what we're going to have here is our second Esper fight, which I am looking forward to showing you guys. And this one, obviously we had Belias the first time. This time we have Mateus, who is the Ice Esper. Now we don't have the manufactured Nethicite anymore to reduce our ice damage. What we do have is the Tourmaline Ring, but I did not buy enough of them to cover everybody, which was ultimately a mistake here. I definitely should have done that, but we do have the Tourmaline Ring, and we also have the Ice Shield for both Varn and Ash. So the general idea here was to obviously equip the Ice Shield for those guys, to have another character with the Tourmaline Ring, and just basically see how we get on. Apply Protect before we go in, so this was one of those fights where I definitely used the trick of using the Gilt measure to protect everyone. In terms of level, Mateus is a level 30 and has 34,259 HP. So compared to the 71,000 of the Elder Wyrm, this is actually looking pretty good. But obviously the HP never tells the whole story. It's about how much defense do they have, how quick they are, how hard did they hit, what statuses do they hit you with. There's a lot that they can do. In addition to that, it's one of those kind of boss fights where the game has said it's basically immune to almost all of the status effects. It's not immune to oil, so if you have some kind of setup where you can inflict oil damage to it, it normally halves fire damage, but obviously with oil you can probably do a lot more, so it might be worth it. But in terms of things like silence, slow, sap, all of that stuff, we can't inflict any of it. So this is one of those rare occasions where it's going to be kind of straight up firepower, and we have to do our best to try and do all the damage that we need before we get taken out. So the very first attempt I had, I made that mistake that I mentioned earlier where I forgot to equip Balthier with his gun, so I swapped him in, and he obviously put Protect on the boss, and that completely ruined everything, so I decided to just do another take 2. So this was attempt number 2, because the first one I flunked by forgetting to change Balthier's weapon from the Gilt measure. So Reflect comes on as well. Thankfully, obviously, in an attack-only challenge, it doesn't matter. But if it was a different type of challenge, obviously, the Reflect can be a little bit annoying. So now I'm removing these gambits so that I can focus on Mateus. My plan, basically, once I saw those Ice Azer things pop, I was thinking maybe it's better that I just ignore them, because in my first attempt, I had a look and I wasn't doing that much damage to them, and there's a fair few of them around. And so I thought maybe if I just really focus in on Mateus, 30,000 HP isn't an incredible amount. I might be able to basically take it out while ignoring the others. So we'll see what happens here. I also wasn't sure if those Ice Azer things just respawn. So I thought it might be a waste of time to try and take them down. I was just trying to rely on my Ice defense and my Protect here to see if I could last long enough to win the fight. So Varn's taking a lot of hits here. He's primarily been targeted so far. Now finally the pressure's off him a little bit. So I think we're doing okay, but Varn being this close to death is obviously a little bit of a concern because he's one of my best attackers here. Let's see if he can put up a little bit of a last stand. He's not putting any chains together this time, and he's already been taken out. So I think Varn didn't do too great this time. So Balthier is in, and he has the correct weapon this time, which will make a bit of a difference. You're seeing 500 damage there from the Beetlejuice. That's what we want to see. And he's getting himself away again. That's obviously going to help him survive much longer in the fight as well. So here, I'm trying to swap things around a little bit, make sure I have the right stuff. Obviously, when I have Barsh out there, I'm prioritizing the Tourmaline Ring on him. If I was really struggling with this fight, I would have made an effort to get some more Tourmaline Rings and then come back. So here comes a big move. See how much damage it does. And 350 and 250 or so on Ashe and Sap. Now, thankfully, because Ashe's start point is high for her HP, once again, you'll see that Sap is... like, it's a bad status, but it's not quite as bad as it looks. Now, what you're also going to start to notice is that Curagas are starting to come in. So you're seeing that Mateus is healing. So 30,000 HP, but it's being healed in the second half of the fight. So this is where I had to start to wonder, can we still out-damage the healing that it's receiving? And is it going to start to become the case where I really need to kill these Ice Azer things to be able to win this fight? But you're seeing we're still doing well. We're still chipping away here, and we're out-damaging the Curaga. So we still have a chance. But soon Barsh is going to die, so one of my best damage dealers again is going to be gone. And our damage output is going to slow down. So is it going to be able to, like, including like the last stand type of mechanics, is it going to be able to hold on and be able to stop us from defeating it at the last second? Because those heals are coming in like 600 at a time. They're pretty big heals. Big damage there. You're seeing Ashe. You saw the last stand mechanics that she's got there doing huge damage. 1,761 I think that was from Ashe. And we managed to defeat Mateus as well and complete the Stilshrine of Miriam. So this was a big section. It took maybe like a couple of hours of gameplay, including even like some speed ups and that kind of thing, to really get through it all. But our reward is our second Esper Mateus, and we are able to continue the story. So once again, another big jam-packed episode, but I think I definitely need to wrap it up here. Hopefully it's not like super long. I'm going to try my best to edit it down to like between 50 minutes and like an hour and 5 tops. But yeah, a lot got done in this episode, and the highlights, of course, were stuff like the Gilt measure, which has proved to be huge, even though I'm still getting used to using it. As you've seen, I've already kind of failed a few times, but hopefully I'll get better and more used to it. And we were able to get our second Esper as well. And from here I can start to sign off, and hopefully in the next episode we will still continue our story progress and see how far we can get. So thank you all for watching once again. It's been great to see people continuing to engage with the series. Like, the views have remained pretty solid. It hasn't been much of a drop off. So I'm definitely very glad that people are continuing to stay invested and watch the series. So thank you all so much. As always, early access and extra support is available on Patreon. I will see you guys for the next episode. Thank you for watching. Take care.